Hi, I'm Courtney. It's great to meet you and welcome aboard. In today's training, we are going to focus on prompting and the different levels of prompting. You may be asking yourself, what is a prompt? A prompt is anything we as practitioners or therapists use that are effective and appropriate for the client. A prompt allows the client to provide the correct response with avoiding any incorrect responses. Therefore, prompts are always given prior to the behavior occurring. Now, there are many reasons as to why we would use prompts. Some of those reasons being we use prompts as the best way to teach a goal to the client. It also allows to reduce frustration as well as provide support with challenging tasks. While using prompts, we want to begin by using the least intrusive prompt and only increasing the level of prompting if needed. If a client is able to provide the correct response and is able to complete a task independently, no prompting is necessary. Before jumping into the different levels of prompting, it is important to briefly discuss prompt fading. When using any level of prompting, once a client has displayed a successful rate of responding, we must begin to fade back our prompt. This means if we are providing a gestural prompt by using hand over hand to have the client trace their name, trace any simple shapes, we may begin by fading back to where we move our hand just by guiding the wrist. So we may begin with complete hand over hand while tracing, and as they are successfully showing a successful rate of having successful trials, we may begin by just fading back and guiding their wrist as they're tracing their name. It is important to ensure we are fading our prompts, because if we do not fade the prompts, clients may become prompt dependent. This means the client will begin to rely on prompts and may even engage in behaviors if prompts are removed. Therefore, we want to ensure once the client has displayed a successful rate of correct responding to the current prompt, we are decreasing either the level of prompting or when the prompt is provided. This will increase the likelihood of the client being able to independently complete the skill. While using any level of prompting, we want to ensure we have a plan to fade those prompts to ensure independent responding. Now, there are many different levels of prompting. To begin our training on the level of prompting, we will begin with the least intrusive level type of prompting. This type of prompting would be visual prompting. Visual prompting involves when an individual is provided with a picture, textual, or other written cue. An example of visual prompting would be providing an individual with a picture of, say, a bathroom to request going to the bathroom. This could also be used when an individual is working on managing for preferred items, providing that individual with, say, a picture of an iPad to then hand to you to request for it. That would be using a visual prompt. The next least intrusive level of prompting is verbal prompting, which is when the client is provided with a verbal cue. An example of verbal prompt would be providing the individual with the beginning sound of a word you are teaching. So let's say we are teaching the word dog. We would provide the individual with the d, and they would then provide the rest of dog. That would be an example of verbal. Verbal can also be where we are saying the whole word. So say dog. Client repeats dog. The next level of prompt is gestural prompting, which involves any type of gesture. For example, if a client is working on coloring and begins to not attend to the paper, pointing or even a light tap on the paper to bring the client's attention back to the paper and back on task would be a gestural prompt. The next level of prompting is modeling, in which the skill would first be demonstrated to the client, and then the client would repeat what the demonstrated skill was. Therefore, an example of modeling would be if we were teaching a client to clap their hands, we would model it. So we say, do this, clap your hands, and then the client would then demonstrate clapping their hands. The next type of prompting we have would be partial physical prompting, which is when a client still requires physical guidance, but only when necessary. So this could be if a client is working on writing their name and is able to independently write all letters besides the letter E. They still need that guidance while writing the letter E. So therefore, we would have them independently write every other letter, and then once it came to the letter E, we would provide that physical guidance. The last type of prompting would be full physical prompting, which is when we provide hand-over-hand assistance to complete the task. So for example, back to tracing or writing names, when first beginning to learn to write our names, we would provide that hand-over-hand, first beginning with tracing, have them trace the letters. Once the client has become successful with tracing, using hand over hand, again, we would fade that prompt. The full physical prompting is used to ensure that the individual is correctly completing the task. And this also, especially when working with tracing or writing, we're making sure that they are starting and stopping at appropriate locations. Prompting is a critical technique used in ABA and helps individuals develop new skills as well as reduce this frustration when learning new skills. Prompting is very beneficial for both the client and us as practitioners and therapists to ensure that we are very familiar with and have the appropriate training to use, because again, we want to ensure if we are using prompting, we have a plan on how to fade that prompting to reduce the likelihood of a client becoming prompt dependent, and to ensure that we will be able to have the client independently give the correct response. If you have any questions, please let me know.